No, we just changed. We'll see. Good evening, good evening, good evening. It is Thursday. It is December 18th. And you know what? I'm actually late because we had a technical issue. I love technology until I don't. And I had to go out, I had to come back in. But I'm so thrilled to be here tonight for another session of Let's Talk Power Live. I am Dr. Tanji Reed Marshall. I am the founder, CEO, principal consultant of Liaison Educational Partners. And Today's Thursday, and I'm so thankful for what we're about to share tonight. I'm thankful for the opportunity to be here with you. I'm thankful for the partner that I just submitted a whole project proposal with. So I'm super grateful today and grateful for the holidays that are right around the corner because all my kids are coming home. My two kids are coming home. I get to see my son-in-law, my grandchild. It's going to be a great holiday. So as I ask every week, what are you grateful for? And I want you to be intentional and I want you to take time to pause and to discuss inside your brain or choose somebody else to share what you're grateful for. So let's go ahead and get into our conversation this week. So you know that I talk about power. This week, though, I'm so thrilled for today's session. Today's session is all about teaching math with power and purpose. And I'm going to bring on my guest in a few moments, but I just wanted to go through what we go through every week because you know what I talk about every week. I talk about power in education. And why do I talk about power in education? Well, here's why. Education is the instrument of democratic designs, and it is no less the instrument of power. The control of information, the sharing of understanding, and the influence of judgment are critical elements common to democratic design, power theory, and educational philosophy. I say it every week. This is why I talk about power in education. If you are an adult who controls the information, the content that children learn, and the skills that they are developing, then you've got power and you exercise it. But then the next question is, then what is instructional power? So here is instructional power. It is or can be understood as an educator's use of their state, district, and building ascribed job-related authority to afford or constrain a student's access to learning. That's what it is in a nutshell. And I know that we have power. And I know that we wield power. You heard my story, and I'll come back and share it again one of these days about how I was a power protector and how I came out of that and really began to lean into agency development and empowerment. But let's go ahead, and I want to talk about what you missed last week. You might have missed a couple of things. Well, week one, we started off talking about strategy as power with Dr. Cheryl Harmon. And we said leadership identity must be designed, not assumed. Strategy, structures, and systems are the real source of power, and those are your real power moves. And then last week, we really leaned into trust and power, and that if you have no trust, you have no transformation. We said that low trust equals protective and disenfranchising power, and you pay a high cost for it. Conversely, though, high trust equals agentic and empowering leadership, and you can get a whole lot more done because people are willing to give you grace and they will go with you. So that's where we were last week. But now I am so excited to bring on our guest for this week. And I met him it's been a long time. It's been more than 5 years. And he is a math whiz. He is committed to math. He's committed to teaching math with power and purpose. And if you have not been following James O'Neill, I don't know what to tell you. You need to go ahead and get yourself together and please go ahead and follow him. But right now, please let's welcome to Let's Talk Power, James O'Neill. Are you there, James?
I am here. Hey, Dr. Tanji, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much.
It's good to
So
be here.
It is good to be here. Like I said to you earlier, I'm so glad that you said yes, and I appreciate your life and I appreciate the power that you bring to this conversation about math. And when we were planning for today's show, so give me some ideas about math and what we're going to talk about. So before we get started on our big conversation, let's talk about why are you so committed to teaching math and having others learn about math with power and purpose.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. Again, thank you again for the invitation, Dr. Tanji. You know, I adore you and the work that you do. Amazing. And so thanks again for that. One thing I'm grateful for is just to be asked to come here today. So thank you for that. To your question about just why am I passionate about this is simply because it's funny, but my life story is really rooted in a teacher and her power to position me in an advanced math class.
Oh,
So
wow.
I was in a very small school district, small town, 2,000 people, six country living. That's how I grew up. And there just wasn't a lot of expectations for little black boys. And it showed. So when I showed up on the screen and scene and just was like, I want to learn, and I was scoring at the same rates as my white peers at the time, it was like, why am I not in this gifted track? There was this gifted track, and the kids were being pulled out, and they were doing, I don't know, their secret things in the gifted classroom as they were being pulled away from us. And I'm just like, my grades are still the same. At the highest. And it wasn't until I got into eighth grade where the gifted teacher in eighth grade, who also taught Algebra 1, gave me a placement test and said, I think your grades show that you can really do algebra. And so the previous year in seventh grade, students had pre-algebra. She gave me a placement test, me and my best friend Chester, two black boys who was really smart at the same level. And we scored into Algebra 1. And that decision, she didn't have to give me a placement test, right? She didn't have to ask me. She didn't have to see me. She could have just let me go on and do what I wanted to do in the general class. She actually said, I'm going to give you a placement test. And it changed my life because in our little small town, we only had one track to get on with the advanced kids because we didn't offer any other times to take these classes. There was no abundance of these courses. It was like you got on the track, you got on the train. If you didn't get on, you could never catch up. And so I'm passionate about that because my life story is dedicated to a decision that she made about me, that she actually saw me. And I try to get really other teachers to see us all, specifically our black and brown kids.
Wow. What a story, right? We talk about math storytelling and life storytelling. So I'm so pleased that you're able to communicate that and the right there, that instructional power. She
Yeah.
exercised it. She literally made a conscious decision to do something different. And so I want to talk about this idea of Black boys and math and like, what is the problem? Right. Visiting your website, found some great data. I
Mhm.
knew a lot of the data, but I wanted to really pull up these big facts so people will really begin to see the math problem. So walk us through, what is the critical math problem with Black boys and math?
Yeah. There are people, you may get different takes on what the ultimate issue is, but even tied to my story, there is a problem with expectations. There is a
Mm.
clear understanding that who we expect and who we definitely don't expect in mathematics. And even it has gone down to gender. We look back at the history of teaching mathematics, even going back then, like girls were allowed to learn mathematics. It was the subject for boys. And, and when you think about that and the opening up to females, and now you're thinking about us as African Americans or Black people in this country, like the expectation was that we don't do this, we can't do this. And though it has been years, years have gone by, that same mindset is prevalent today. And so it is an expectation issue. Even in my story, like I was performing at the same level, but I know it was because of my skin. I know it was because of my gender, that the fact that I wasn't invited to go and be in the class with the rest of the white peers, because everybody in that specific particular space were white students. And so the issue ultimately I see is an expectation. And when you don't expect certain people to do they don't, with people, you don't plan for them to succeed. And so historically, if a people have been pretty much given barriers in place or not given access to certain things, and then you now say, well, everybody has access, but you don't expect them to walk in it, then the access is just a facade, because ultimately people make decisions that either open the gates or close the gates. And so what I've seen specifically with Black boys, we don't really believe that they can do it. If we get down to the nitty gritty, and we don't plan to support them even in the structural barriers that they may face in education in general, because they are facing barriers that maybe other students are not facing, we will pretty much make that an excuse, like, I told you so. I told you they
Right,
can't. And so
right,
that's what I commonly see
right.
over and over again.
We have this fulfilling prophecy, right? We
Yep.
don't plan for it, right? In the
Hmm.
work I do with with leaders and then educators, they really have a focus on checking for understanding, not realizing you got to plan for it. It doesn't just
Yep.
happen. We love all these teachable moments, but I need you to plan for some things, right? And this idea of planning for that is really important. You on your website and in your work, you talk about mastery. Help us understand this idea, like, what is it about your mastery for all that really speaks to how we can break this cycle and how we can break the chain of what's happening with Black boys from the instructional side? But it's
Hmm.
not just instruction, because instruction is literally a singular piece of a very large systemic
Yep.
and systematic challenge. So talk to us about this idea of mastery.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So when I say mastery for all, it is a blanket statement that I believe all can be mastery students in mathematics
Mhm.
in particular. And
Mhm.
so when I look at teachers, and it's funny, Dr. Tanji, I was doing a PD among leaders around 2 months ago, and I was talking about the like leadership is influence. And I asked teachers or leaders there, like, what does good mathematics teaching look like? What is it? What are the components of it? And people kept saying the same thing. Like, it's about relationships, building relationships with kids. It's about conceptual understanding. It's about making sure that kids are talking and you give the power to them, and you decrease and they increase, and then you have these critical conversations and you let them explore. Like, everybody that's successful in it are saying the same thing. And I'm just like, so why aren't we know what it takes to be successful? Why aren't people necessarily leaning into that? And many times the people that are not leaning into what it takes to be mastery or build mastery, is that many times they were given a system that necessarily said, this is how we teach mathematics. So I'm going
Right.
to do all the talking. I'm going to do the I do, you do, we do. And that's what I'm going to model for you. I'm never going to allow you to explore on your own, because ultimately that is not the way it was given to me. And so when I think
Right.
about mastery and what it really takes for our students to be mastery students, it really takes, first of all, us believing that it's possible for them to learn it. And think about power. I think we talked about power before, but that whole I do is a power move. It always has to start with
With
me.
me,
And
right.
if
It's
it's
a power move.
always
It's always me.
me,
I'm at the
then
center of it all, right? Because I
exactly.
know it, right?
Yep.
I know the
Yep.
math, I know the concepts. I am going to tell it to you. I'm
Yep.
going to model it, and then we can do it. And it's funny because you talked about that. When I would do some sessions with leaders and teachers, I said, what happens if you flip that model on your head? What if
Yeah.
you started with the you do first?
Hmm.
Well, what if they make a mistake? Have you ever misadded? Like, I think they make these things called pencils, and pencils have these things called erasers on the back of them or at the bottom of
Right.
them. And so you just erase and start over, but we're so teacher adult. I don't even want to say teacher. I think it really is adult centered.
It is.
It
It is.
really is a centering of the adults, and how that matters, and what it means for that. But one of the other areas that's really interesting that you talk a lot about is this concept of storytelling.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how do we really transform the mindsets with storytelling, right? And I'm a literacy person, so I had to have my book on the page. Like, the book and the math have to go together for me. So
Yeah, yeah,
let's
yeah.
talk about this idea of transforming mindsets with storytelling. How do we do
Yeah.
that?
I you know, I was in a session, and someone said that the use data can be, they pretty much said, weaponized.
Yeah.
Data does tell a story, but we can use data to weaponize people or to use it to dismantle people. And here's a story that is commonly told. When we hold up data, we can already predict like who's achieving, who's not achieving, right? And if we get down into categories such as race and gender or socioeconomic status or students with disabilities, it's a story that has been told for many and many years. We know the story, right? And because we know the story and is so familiar with the story, we expect the story to play out year after year
And guess what?
until,
It does.
and it
Right.
does, until you hear a different story. And it takes us many times hearing this a different story and being exposed to a different story over and over again so that we don't put this on. And we have this saying, even in Black America, the token one. So it's like, no, you got that because you're special. No, I got those results because I actually didn't do and plan to do what the story has been doing for all along. I chose to do something different. And so the power of storytelling is really getting people to hear the success. Like, I'm not just the only Black male that's in math education that has been successful. There are others of us, and we will share the same methods of how we came out of it, the support that we needed. And that's the story that you need to hear, because what you've been seeing over and over again doesn't yield to our success, because the same story has been yielding failure for some, success for others. And that's why I'm so like adamant about sharing my story, sharing my
Yeah.
experiences, letting other teachers hear it so that I can position them if they want to believe. That's the start, right? If
Oh,
you want to
wow.
believe
That's, yeah. We're going to hit
that
that in a
something
moment. If
else
they
could
want
happen.
to believe,
Yes.
right? If they want to believe, belief is a choice,
Yes.
right? And when you are accustomed to hearing a story, seeing the quote unquote numbers that quite like wag the tail, right?
Mhm.
Or the numbers that evidence the quote unquote story, the cognitive dissonance created when people do not really when the story is counter, right? They have a
Yeah.
counter narrative.
Yep.
Counter
Yep.
narratives are very difficult because
Mhm.
they create cognitive dissonance. And when you're used to the train going down that path, it doesn't want to take another path, right? It's your
Nope.
your brain actually doesn't want to think.
Mm-mm.
So, when you press it to think, it's going to give you resistance. And so I'm so fascinated by the fact that you said that. Want to move on now because you do a lot of conversation around the concept of equity. And we know that equity is taboo these days.
Yeah.
And people are trying not to say the word equity. And they're trying to be very judicious about, well, I'm going to do the work and not say the word. And on some level, we can both agree with that because we have both found that people don't do the work, but they say the word. So, like, does it really matter anyway? Right? They be out here talking about equity all day and twice on Sunday for fun, but they don't really do the work. And
Yeah.
so, do we want the word or do we want the work done? So let's just lean in a little bit about this idea of equity through empathy. Like, what do you see? Like right now, I know that we talk about seeing students fully to teach them fully. You got to see them to teach them. Equity is relational, not just structural. Listen to understand, not to respond. How does this create the conditions for mastery for all and addressing the systematic and systemic problems that Black boys face when they are in school? They're not the problem, it's the condition. So, how do
Mhm.
these three ideas come together for that?
Yeah, yeah, this is a really good question. When I think about this, I think about the last time I was a student and when I didn't get it and
Mm,
how that made me feel. And so I am sometimes you spend the role as an educator and it's just us, it's like you said, it's comfort. We don't want to think you don't want to go back to that moment where you're just like, I'm struggling to get this. I'm struggling to make sense of this. Like, and so I put myself in those situations again to remind myself, what does this feel like? And when
mm,
I'm teaching and my kids are not getting it, I am now reminded of that feeling that it's not that they don't necessarily want to get it. And I ground myself in this understanding that success is the greatest feeling. Like all of our kids want to lean into success. And so they would rather get it, this is my belief, than not get it, right?
oh,
And so there might
yes.
be some productive struggling along the way, but the idea is like, I know you want to get this. And I'm empathetic and taking my time and trying to make sense of it for you, because I know how it feels to be sitting somewhere and you're trying your best and you're not succeeding. No one wants that. And that is not a good feeling. Failure is not what you were designed for. So I'm going to find a way for you to be successful because I know how it feels to be overlooked, even in my own
Right.
story. And
Oh,
so when you
right.
position that, it allows you to move differently for real.
Oh, I love that. And this idea that kids want to feel successful. I don't know the child that wakes up and says, you know what?
Exactly.
Today's that day. Nah, I'm not doing it. I don't want to do it. I want to lean into some questions. And I want to focus on, I mean, before we came on stage, I said, the last question here is the
Mhm.
biggest, most important question. So let's lean with that one first. And before we even do that, I have forgotten, please, if you have not subscribed to this channel, make sure you do that. I will tell you, this is the only channel where we're actually highlighting how power impacts education. So go ahead and subscribe, go ahead, like, and please go ahead and share. All right, here we go. That last question. What would it take to teach math as liberation? What does that look like? What does it feel like to actually teach math as liberation?
Mm, Gosh. Whew, that's such a powerful question. Ugh, um, First of all, when students come to me and they say that they get it or I'm different, it is because I believe in them. And liberation first starts off with the belief that
Mm,
all deserves this. Like you don't, because of your race, because of your gender, because of societal norms, I'm not going to put you in a place where others are not able to reach. I'm going to
mhm.
believe that as an educator that everybody gets access, everybody has the opportunity to learn, and everyone can learn mathematics. When that is the foundation, I'm getting chills thinking about it. But when it's the foundation, Dr.
I
Tangi,
know.
students come back and say, I didn't get it before, but I get it now. And I actually like it now. And what they're really saying is that you liberated me out of a mindset, a fixed mindset that this wasn't for me, but
Right.
it is. And the way that math is designed in this country and many countries across the world is that it's the gatekeeper subject. It's the one subject that when you look historically in our country, it's the first subject where students that are great in it, they start to get access to go ahead.
Right.
They start
That's
they,
right.
in middle school, start taking those honors classes. And what is that doing? That's liberating them to free up their schedule when they get into high school to take those AP and those IB courses. And what is
That's right.
that doing? That's liberating them. So when they go to college, they take them in high school so they don't get the debt that everybody else gets. They are literally getting ahead and getting credits along the way. It is liberation, the way that it's been designed in this country, which may not be the right way, but the way it's been designed, it's for people, it's to liberate people. And when you first believe that everybody deserves it, I believe it has to be the starting place for our liberation in mathematics.
Absolutely. Belief is the starting point of everything. It
Yes.
literally is the starting point for everything, right? You know, even if we take it out of math, if you, like, you're sitting in a chair, right?
Yep.
I'm sitting in a chair. You
Yep.
believed that that chair was going to be there when you bent down, and you then believed that the chair was going to hold your body.
Yep.
Because if you didn't believe it, you would have picked a different chair,
Right.
or you would have been standing. So, this
Both.
idea of belief is critical. Love that, that your students come back and they say that. How do do educators understand the depth necessary of belief and liberation? And as you work with them, do you find the educators, the leaders saying, you know what, I didn't get this. I didn't get this belief thing, but I get it now. And I'm ready to turn this corner. I'm ready to open that door. I'm ready to use my instructional power for a different way, not to constrain, but to literally afford in an authentic way.
You know what, Dr. Tanji, I can't make this stuff up. I literally today, things align as they align the way they align.
That's
I
right.
literally
That's right.
today got a IG message from a teacher who was in a session that I did 3 weeks ago. And she said, she quoted me, she said, I remember you saying, if you plan for them to fail, then they're going to fail. If you plan for them to succeed, they're going to succeed. She said that under crazy circumstances, she was asked to do like 2 units right before the break and everything like that. And she said, I began to tell myself, I'm going to plan for my students to succeed. I know I'm under these hard circumstances right now, but I'm a plan for them to succeed. And what she said was that what she thought that everybody was going to fail, she said 11 out of the 17 students passed both units of the test, which for her was a defining moment based
Moment.
upon her belief that went into her planning, which went into the results of the kids. And so she told me, she said, keep saying what you're saying, James, because those people that are listening and they're going to really want to change their practices and their behaviors, they're going to find out that when you start believing, you're going to start planning differently. And I wish people get that. I wish people
Right. Right.
understood that.
Please. Exactly.
I
Please get
wish.
it. I
I'm
wish, right?
trying to.
And I've been an ELA teacher all the time, and a long time, right? And I deal with, leaders at all levels in this education landscape. And when I talk about the instructional power, I'm telling you, it comes down to belief, right?
Yes.
My son took a French class in high school, and he came home and he said, Mom, every time I raise my hand to answer a question, she'll call on me. But before I get my answer out, she answers. I said, let me tell you what's happening. She doesn't believe you know the answer. That's one thing. She called on you because she's supposed to, right? Because
Mhm.
I'm supposed to call on that. I said, and she does not believe giving you wait time is a good use of class time, because wait time is class time. And it's either an investment in the child's thinking or it is an expense of class time.
That's so good, Dr. Tanji. That is so good. That's good.
It's the truth,
Woo! That's
right?
good.
Wait time is a signal. It means
Yeah.
something. It's like when I pay for something, I'm either investing in that thing and you get my money, or
Hmm.
I don't and you don't, or I complain about it. Right?
Right.
So
Right.
it's one of those things, right? We've been talking a lot about this whole power idea and my power framework, and you see the power moves in math, right? Let's walk through this. When we think about power, talk about position students as brilliant. Is that a yes or is that a no?
That is a yes.
All right. Ownership. Design for student ownership through conceptual mastery, not just compliance. Is that a yes or a no?
That is a yes. All day.
Do the mindset work. Use storytelling to challenge assumptions and spark reflection. We yesing or knowing?
That's a all day. Even though I'm shaking my head like this because it's
It's like,
good, but
that's yes.
it is a yes.
I love it. And then environment. Build safe environments where belonging, autonomy, and praise are constant.
Yes, 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 yes.
And then relationships. Lead with relationship and empathy to sustain trust, and elevate that equity. These are some power moves. You agree with these?
I am all in favor of these moves.
All right. Well, that gives me courage because when we think about, this idea of power, we don't really understand how much we wield, and
Hmm.
it really is the decision to let the child go to the bathroom because you're not worried about whether they're going to be able to catch up to what you're teaching or not. Versus, you know what? Okay, you can go, but we're about to do something super important and I want to make sure you get it. Can you wait?
Yeah.
We don't really understand the depth of that. And so I want to recap with our audience. And again, if you've not subscribed, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. We talked today about positioning brilliance first. Black boys deserve to be seen as capable and creative. Shift the ownership. Mastery grows when students make meaning, not just meet expectations. We want people to do the work. Storytelling helps educators unlearn bias and humanize instruction. Please, for the humanity of kids,
Yes.
engineer the environment, engineer it. Safety, belonging, and praise are essential to risk taking and rigor. Lead with relationships. Trust and empathy drive sustainable equity and academic power. If students don't trust you, you pay a high cost.
Oh my.
You pay a high cost if your students don't trust you, particularly at the middle school level. You and I both know that
Yes,
in that
ma'am.
middle school vein, if they don't trust you, you earn every ounce of that paycheck.
Yes, you
And then
do.
you owe them money because they're gonna make you pay for it, right? And then instructional power isn't abstract. It's not an abstraction. It's built with intention, mindset, and daily moves. That's our recap for today. If you're catching us on the replay, these are some recaps that we did today. And James, every time I end my show, I end with a gem for the journey. Give us one of your gems. How can people reach you? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so if you look up at Mr. James O'Neill, either it has a Mr. dot or Mr. without the dot, James O'Neill on all social media platforms, you'll find me there. And you'll find me at my website is mrjameso'neill.com. You'll find the resources, how to get in contact with me, videos, things that I do, and you can keep up with me that way.
Awesome, fantastic. And our gem for the journey, if you're a leader, even if you're an educator at the classroom level, you are at a critical juncture. This time of year, you're wrapping up the first semester. The second semester basically starts tomorrow before you walk out the door. You need to start with reflecting now because when those kids come back, they're coming back bigger, they're coming back louder, they're coming back with a whole lot.
Yeah,
And
all of
you
the
want to
above.
make sure, right, James? We know those
Yep.
middle school kids, when they walk back in the building, they look completely different.
Different.
They look different. And so you want to be ready now so you don't have to get ready back in January. This data to action tool is really going to help you do that. Most leaders, most educators wait until January. That creates a gap in readiness. It creates a gap in students being able to get back on track faster. Take the time now. Go ahead and download this data to action tool using the QR code or the code right there. That way you can look at your landscape now. You can take a little bit of leisure time over your break and then get yourself prepared. And it also is going to give you a way to contact and get in contact with me so that you can get some extra support should you need it. And then always get your book, get your book, get your book. It's on Amazon. Take a picture, tag us, hashtag instructional power. And James, I just want to say thank you again for
Yes,
joining
ma'am.
Let's Talk Power Live. Can't wait to have you come back again. And best holidays to you and your family.
Same to you. I appreciate the invitation. This has been amazing. Thank you, Dr. Tanji.
All right. Have a good night. Bye bye.
You too.